This is All Ears.
We sing through the night till our tongues are tired, our lips numb from humming.
I'm Everett Hopfner, pianist, new music explorer, and host of this podcast. On each episode of All Ears, you'll hear conversations with my musical friends, mentors, and the many people who inspire me. My guest for episode 19 is the magnificent Canadian mezzo-soprano Erica Iris Huang. Erica is a former winner of the Eckhart Grammaté competition for new music, and is a current member of the Canadian Opera Company Chorus. I met Erica several years ago in Casal Maggiore in Italy, where I was simply blown away by the power of her voice and her incredible charisma, on and off the stage. This is an interview I've been looking forward to for a long time, and I'm very happy to share it with you today.
Singing to the
All Ears is a platform for young musicians to share their stories with a wider audience. New episodes are released twice a month. If you like the show, you can subscribe to the feed and you'll never miss an episode. And if you love the show, you can help All Ears by recommending it to a friend or leaving a review on iTunes or Stitcher. Thanks so much for your support. Now, here's the interview.
down that long road to.
Well, Erica, this is a real treat. Thank you so much for joining me on All Ears.
My pleasure. So happy to be available and to talk to you.
Can you tell me about where you grew up?
Sure. So I was born and raised in Scarborough by two very loving parents who were highly musical. I did not grow up in a very stereotypical Chinese community where there's high influences on science and maths. My parents knew that I was hopeless, and they knew that those were not my strengths. So that was always encouraged to do really well in the arts, that being singing, of course, in the choirs or solos, singing at the church that I grew up in, a Baptist church, and doing really well in visual arts, anything that was expressive artistically. They always made sure that they were encouraging, but always wanted me to pursue that. It was very clear to me. And it's rare because they both are singers. So, of course, with that comes a lot of criticism. They were very hard on me. Every performance, they never missed a single performance in my life.
So, Erica, when you say your parents were singers, what kind of singing would they do in your childhood?
Good. So my parents were both singers who met in Toronto in 72, I believe, 73. And my father was a well-known baritone in a barbershop quartet in Manila, the Philippines. And then he was never officially trained, but he had an incredible ear, a good sense of rhythm. You could give him anything and he could just play it off the back of his head and just arrange it for four parts. And my mother, on the other hand, was well trained, similar path to mine, where she studied undergrad music and then went to U of T for voice studies. So she actually had the privilege of taking voice lessons from Dr. Vinci, Ernesto Vinci, who has a room at the Canadian Opera Company, and he's established many, many huge singers. So she gave that all up when she joined the Mendelssohn Toronto Medicine Choir, and then decided motherhood was important. So it was a huge sacrifice for her. So she was I would say like a soubrette, a high soprano, a lyric soprano. So I always feel like she's living vicariously through me. She's always wanted to pursue it. But when she hit like 25, 26 and she got married, that was the end of that. And that just became choral conducting, spiritual songs, all through the church life. Even to this day, she's still working.
When you're growing up in a family full of singers, was there pressure to take it very seriously, or was it just something that became part of normal life and you just did it because it was the thing that you did as a family?
Yeah, good question. I never felt pressured. They never told me or try to insinuate that this is what you should do. I just knew that I was good at it. Even at a very young age, say about age 6, I auditioned for the Toronto Children's Chorus. And yeah, I didn't know what G major was at the time, and I couldn't identify key signatures. But if I was given a passage of even as much as 10 bars, I was able to sing it exactly on pitch and exactly in the same rhythm. So I knew I had a good ear. But at the time, I didn't know what to do with that skill. So my grandfather is also a music minister. Everyone in my family sings. We're kind of like the Chinese Mennonite family. Mennonites all have amazing harmony abilities and they can sing so beautifully in tune and in unison. That's my family. Whenever we gathered for Christmas or even for Easter, we all sang at least like 6-part harmony, and it always sounded glorious. So no pressure whatsoever, but highly encouraged.
What were some of the opportunities early in your musical development that helped you express music in social settings?
Okay, hands down, the Toronto Children's Chorus, when led by Jean Ashworth Bartle, changed my life. I really sincerely believe I would have been a wild child who had been difficult, who probably had ADD and didn't know how to deal with my emotions and things if it weren't for this choir. At the ripe age of 9, we went to Carnegie Hall. And I was the youngest member in the entire chamber choir. I was asked to come to sing as an alto. I developed a really good ear. I sang in that choir for 16 years. I mean, it really shaped me. So I did a lot from Belgium and Holland to Washington, D.C., the Kennedy Center, to Italy. I mean, I had it all. I was such a spoiled child. And my parents paid out of pocket everything. Meanwhile, they'd never even left North America. So it was just such a gift at 9, 10, 11, 12 to do all those things. And then, build friendships and learn what it is to sing together in a choir of 50. So singing concerts maybe 8 times a year was no stranger to me. Mm-hmm. And it became the norm. And I knew I never had stage fright, and it shaped and molded who I am today.
So was it ever any doubt for you to pursue music after high school, or was that just a given?
That was a given. There was no other choice. Mm-hmm. I felt sincerely that was my duty, and that if I didn't do that, I'd be a fool. And I did consider teaching, but still, I think I wanted it as an outlet. And I mean, teaching in a district school board.
Sure.
But I secretly knew that wouldn't be right. And I pursued that in the first year university, but second year they said, now that you have to pick seriously, like vocal pedagogy or vocal performance, we highly recommend that you take vocal performance because you have everything you need. And then try it. It's always like, try it first and then see what happens. So I thought, well, yeah, sure. Why not? Let's give it a go. And I've never stopped since.
So where did you end up going to school for your training?
So I went to Wilfrid Laurier University in Waterloo. And I chose that school because of the environment and the tight-knit community. And I knew that there was a lot of opportunities for performance, for exposure, and nurturing the need to explore. One of the most important parts of my journey there was taking composition. I did 2 semesters with Linda Catlin Smith, and I learned so much. First of all, how to use my voice not just for opera, how to be an instrument to other people's work when they're writing, and learning how to collaborate with other composers, upcoming composers actually now, who are still working today. It's amazing how many of us are still in this line of work. And in their undergraduate studies, they're very particular about basically not going into opera studies immediately. And I highly encourage that as well. Some schools I find they just jump right into it, and at a ripe age, they're just not ready yet. The best technique you can learn is from art song. So I figured, well, why not stay another year? And they had this opera diploma that I did. And I think I did 45 arias in that one year. So it was really great. Then I moved on to University of Toronto, where I did another opera diploma, but I was really spoiled at University of Toronto because they pretty much gave me everything and anything. I was one of 2 mezzos, and I had all the opportunity in the world.
It's curious you say that you were spoiled and they just gave you things. how much of that is true and how much of that is just you saying that now? Because what do you think you were doing at that age that they were handing those things over to you with such confidence?
I think for sure I was a go-getter and I showed confidence. I was willing to take whatever it was, even if it was new music experiences, something I've never seen and something incredibly daunting. I was willing to do anything. So they knew that and they trusted me with that. I was just non-stop for 2 years, I tell you. Like, even if it meant doing weddings or doing donor sponsorship galas, singing an aria for this, learning how to schmooze and knowing so that's when I knew the art of schmoozing, really. U of T taught me that. I love names. I like to memorize as many faces to names, and that's really important in this industry. It can make or break you, really. That got me really far.
Do you think also musically, were you given a bit of a head start from your family background compared to other students in a similar position?
Oh, for sure. For sure. I remember I got to tell you, I had low tolerance first year of university because I had already completed the Italian songs. I was quite prolific with Italian, and there were students coming in that didn't even speak a word of any other language other than English. So I was thinking, come on, so I felt like I was going backwards a bit, but it humbled me. That was the most important part in my undergraduate studies at Laurier. Because it wasn't about who knew how much. It was how are you going to apply and how are you going to be a consistent singer versus an all knowledgeable, always ready to go kind of singer.
Let's talk about opera.
Okay.
Can you take me through your path towards how you got your current gig in the opera world?
I think it really was a blessing in disguise. I had no intentions of joining the Canadian Opera Chorus. This is at the University of Toronto, my last year, so 2-year program of opera diploma studies. This is in 2010. And I was very nostalgic. I could have cried at the drop of a hat because I just loved school. I loved stability. And the idea of always having work, per se. Not, I wasn't paid, but, roles to do, assignments, that would be gone the second I left school. And everyone was, who was also singer studying, was embarking this audition tour. And it was all very stressful, really. Planning it all out. What houses to sing for? What kind of visa papers do I need? Da-da-da-da-da-da. And Sandra Horace pulled me aside. And she said to me, did you audition for the Canadian Opera Company chorus? I said, pardon? I was kind of confused. He said, you didn't apply, did you? I said, oh, no. Without being, dismissive or offensive. She says, well, Erica, if you don't apply and you don't audition, I can't hire you. And she was just kind of giving me that wink, wink. I was so clueless. And she said it again, and I thought, oh, I get it. She probably needs singers like me. Okay. Yeah, that's a good backup plan. Why not? So I auditioned. She arranged a special audition for me just to sing for her. It was very, very generous of her, considering auditions I already passed. They usually do them in January and February. And the next thing you know, I'm signing a contract to be an AIDA of 80 chorus singers, probably the largest chorus of numbers that we've ever had at the COC. So I was really humbled. And yes, it was one little contract, but that was the start of something I did not foresee. And that was exactly 6 years ago, and I've signed a contract every year. And from one show to two, to two, to four, to six, to full contract. So I've just been kind of riding the waves.
So you have this gig now with the Canadian Opera Company Chorus. Can you tell me just a bit about what a typical day or a typical week might look like for you?
So generally we work 6 days out of the 7 days. And we work evenings, about 6 to 11, sometimes till midnight if the show's very long, if we're doing Wagner. And then on weekends, I work 2 to 10 or 2 to 11. So it's quite demanding. It is a part-time job, but for me, it feels like a full-time thing because when I'm not working, for example, during the days, aside from my own personal hygiene and things that I need to keep up with, I still have to look at the score. It's my job to memorize the staging, to know what the intentions are, to process it all, because when I get into rehearsal, there is no room for that kind of error. It's your job to be as ready as a performance, really. So in the beginning, they do costumes. They'll fit us. Even before our first rehearsal. So that's the first, like, what era? What are we doing? What does it look like? And they have an amazing costume department. Like, they literally will fit things. My first contract of Aida, I remember I stood there. I was pretty much like half naked. And this gorgeous British designer with a thick accent was building a dress on me with pins. It was just fascinating. And I realized it was a brand new production, so naturally they had to build it on me. They didn't have anything from before or prior productions. So that was a pretty special first time course.
Sure.
Costume fitting. And then comes the rehearsal process, and that's when we meet the principals. We see them when they're marking or when they're raw, per se. And then we go into the stage and we start polishing, and then the lights come in and then everything becomes so surreal. And then the show comes together and then you realize, wow, like that process was grueling, but I get it now. This is ready. And then of course comes show night. So it goes by so fast, but in the process of rehearsal, it feels like an eternity.
For musicians, we recognize that there is so much work that goes on behind the scenes, not only in these productions, but also just in each individual person on that stage. Are there other kind of skills that you've had to pick up along the way that maybe aren't obvious to an outsider?
Well, I had really good training in school where we learned different walks, how to bow. Like, for example, you have to learn how to walk like a geisha if we do Madame Butterfly, right? Or learning how to bow properly if you are in a pant roll suit, if you're playing a gentleman, learning how to hold props, things like that, because they don't finesse those things with you immediately. So it's so important in the rehearsal process that you know what you're doing and you know how to respect the desires of the director, what kind of things they need, because sometimes it's really outrageous. Like, they'll want you jumping on a bed and singing jumping on a bed, really? Like, who practices that? So yeah, you have to go home and practice that. It's a huge multitasking performance art and skill. And I think one of the most important, which makes really great artists from okay artists, are those who can think on their feet ASAP. Like, what if, my colleague sprained his ankle or dislocated his shoulder while we're doing a waltzing routine? I have to know how to compensate that and make that look like, oh, it's all peachy, like that was supposed to happen. Because it can happen. And I think that's partially why I love this art form, because there's no two performances exactly alike. And I love the idea of, oh my gosh, like it's just like the unknown. Anything can happen, right? So a lot of skills involved. It's not just about singing. It's knowing your body, knowing how to use it, and working with colleagues. Oh my goodness. Like, the environment can be quite toxic sometimes if you're not careful. If you get consumed by gossip or consumed by body depression of comparing yourself to others, you won't get very far. You have to be thick in your own skin. You have to know what you can provide to the table and what you can't.
I think another aspect that's really stuck with me after hearing you and seeing you perform a little bit is you've got this incredible, just like, gravitational energy, and you have this real persona and this really charismatic attitude. How do you learn that? How do you become this magnetic force on stage? How does that happen?
That's, I've been fascinated by that statement because I've been told that enough times. I think it's something that I have within. I get it from my father, no doubt, even though he's quite a stoic, speaks only when spoken to kind of gentleman. But he's quite the clown. When he puts it on, he's really funny. When I think about it, like when I'm on stage, I don't know how to take this compliment or this comment per se. When I have like donors who'll come up to me and say, through that whole performance, I wasn't even looking at Peter Grimes. I was looking at you. And it's like, oh, that's not what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to look at Peter Grimes. But can I help it? And there's like at least a million things happening on stage with, I would say 80 other bodies. But yet he said he gravitates towards me. And it's like, thank you, but am I doing too much? What did I do to make that different? And it's not that I'm trying to steal the limelight. it just kind of happens, you know, I could just be sitting there with like a deadpan resting bitch face and they'd still be like, no, but you're still stealing the show. So I don't know if it's my face or because I'm just so comical looking and all my features are just really big on stage, you know, big eyes, big lips. I don't know. Like, honestly, sometimes I'll even purposely think of that when I'm on stage because I'm very sensitive. The last thing I want to do is offend a principal. Where they feel uncomfortable because I'm taking, you know, but it's going to happen. You know, I realize that. And chorus people are not bland people. You know, the chorus in the COC are so capable of putting on a solo recital tomorrow. They're just as educated, just as, they have a plethora of things under their belts. They've done so much. It's not even just about education. But how or what? I don't know. I think it's just like I'm true to the form. I think what I do is I'm constantly living in the role that I am asked to play. And so that probably shows. And gosh darn it, I love what I do. And so I'm going to give you 110%. Honesty and truth inside is what shows outward, if that makes any sense.
And it's probably easier to have them tell you to scale it back than to try to pump it up, right?
Oh, yes, all the time. And I can't even tell you, like, what's his name? Tim Albury, when I was doing Aida, oh, God, he cracks me up. And I worked with him later on a new music workshop, like, for sound streams. So we're on good terms. But I remember I was terrified of him because the first week of rehearsal, he'd be like, Erica, stop acting, stop. Just stop it. Just stop. Because we had to be animalistic in our walk. It was just like this new thing he wanted for Aida. So of course I'm going for it. I probably look like a hyena. I don't know. And he just like, no, less. Like he would just constantly call me out. And I didn't feel embarrassed. I found it quite humorous in my head, but I tried to scale it back, but I didn't know how. Like it was just this conflict of interest. Like, but, you know what I mean? So I asked him if he remembered that, and he doesn't, you know, maybe he's just saying that, but, yeah, there's always times when they say, oh, Erica, just pull it back a little bit. But I would much rather they do that than say, give me more. Right. There's nothing more insulting than saying you didn't give enough.
Right. The music world can be pretty competitive, and from my vantage point, it seems like vocal performance and the whole singing world can be even more so. Can you tell me a bit about competitions and that part of your training and how that's shaped your path?
First of all, I think I'm one of the rare singers that thrives on competitions. I love that competitive nature. It doesn't have to be mean-spirited. People always often think, oh, you know, she's competitive. It's probably a bad thing, right? But no, I look at it as a learning experience. And I'm always kind to the other competitors. You're always going to have a couple diva stories here and there where they shun you out or they just give you nothing. They're just deadpan and they don't wish to make friends at the competition level, which is not a problem at E-grade, by the way. They're lovely, lovely competitors for that. But I think with the competitions, because it's so incredibly subjective, you really can't take the results so seriously. Just because the winner became first place doesn't mean that they're the epitome of the ultimate musician, that they should be raised on this high pedestal. I think all competitors are worthy of that. It just happens to be in that moment when it mattered in the, 5 minutes or 20 minutes of that, where it counted, they brought their A game and, you know, everything worked on in their favor. Not that it was luck, but just that, the competitive nature does many things to you, whether it's a mind game or a physical game or, there's various factors that play into it. And that's what I love.
So we have a regular segment on the podcast called the Mr. Rogers Memorial Wonderful Person of the Moment. Can you tell me about somebody who's helped you along your path to get where you are today?
Yeah, no doubt. My mother. Very easy, without a doubt. Many instrumental people in my life, but my mother's the strongest and the one who's most honest. I respect that. I love her dearly as a mother, but also as a friend, as someone who knows what the journey's like, studying opera and being in this field of work. she can be really honest with me, whether that's about looks or whether that's about technical things vocally, or just true wisdom financially, or what to do in the case scenario of I have 2 gigs, what to do, But she's helped shape and mold me, and I really respect her advice. So yeah, she's not exactly someone I can put on a reference letter if I were to apply for like the Metropolitan Opera, because they're like, who's this, right? But nonetheless, that doesn't negate her qualifications for what she's done before she had me, before she had children. Yeah, that's all I can think of, really.
Well, and Erica, you've mentioned that you feel like she is living vicariously through you. Like, what kind of a sacrifice did she make for you and for your family?
I think she had a really promising soprano. Like, she could have done well, like with the Elmer Iser singers, or traveled with, choral singers that were tight-knit and, like 20-voice choir. But because family was so important to her, and my father was terrible at being alone by himself, she gave that up more or less for him. And as well as the social life and the schmoozing of, because she's a good schmoozer. That's probably where I get it from. She sacrificed like the opportunities to go out and have exposure, maybe learn new people and learn new works, and because she'd be interested in that kind of thing, just so that she could be a stay-at-home mom and continue her Toronto District School Board teaching job as a music teacher. Actually, ironically, that's probably why I wanted to teach as well.
No, I think that's really beautiful, and I'm sure she's really proud of what you're doing right now. Even if she might not always express it, I'm sure she's very proud.
Yeah, very much so. Very much so.
Finally, Erica, we always wrap this up. How can the listeners who are interested keep up with your activities and follow you?
Easily. First of all, follow me on Twitter. My handle is Mezzo Erica Iris, and all the photos of my journey through the COC. And I'm very honest with my tweets, so feel free to see what's like backstage. A little sneak peek on who's singing or who I'm working with, the fiascos that happen with the chorus backstage that no one will know about when we show up. So I've got a good following, but feel free to snoop in there. And then I also have Instagram, where occasionally I'll put in a few pictures of myself in costume or with my wig, and that's Erica Kumo, who happens to be the name of my poodle. My miniature silver poodle. So Kumo. You can follow me on Instagram, or better yet, find me on Facebook. I don't have a page. I just have a personal page, but I'm pretty open. Feel free to follow me on Facebook as well.
Great. And I'll put links up to all of those social media profiles on the show notes for this episode. So you can just head to the website, click the links, and you'll get in touch with the majestic Erica. Erica, this is a real treat. Thank you so much for taking all this time to chat this morning. It's always a pleasure, and I really look forward to the next time.
Okay, thanks, Everett. Good chatting.
Well, dear friends, that is it for this episode of All Ears. As always, thank you so much for listening. You can follow me on Twitter at evhopf, that's EVHOPF. For information about the show, you can follow at This Is All Ears. All Ears headquarters is at my website, everetthopfner.com. Check the archive for show notes and links about all my previous guests, and for updated blogs. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast on iTunes or Stitcher, and if you like the show, tell someone about it. Share the love. Alright, All Ears will be back in mid-October. We'll talk to you then.